morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another one of Travel Mole's broadcasts in this now hopefully increasingly post-pandemic world that we live in. And as the world's borders, international borders open up, there's no better time to talk to representatives from Japan, one of the countries that many people have always wanted to go to and perhaps have never had the opportunity. I would think that over the coming months and years that there couldn't be a better opportunity to go to Japan than now, and lots of ways to do it. And in order to tell us a little bit more about it, we've got 5 experts. I'm surrounded by Japanese experts here. And so we have Sarah Coggins, who knows almost every square inch of Japan. We have Sayako from the Capital Hotel. We have Natalia, who's going to talk to us about nature in Japan. We have Adam, who's going to talk about the fascinating subject of Japanese art. And we have Matthew, who's based here in London, but is Mr. Japan, the JNTO, the Japanese National Tourism Office here in London. Okay, well, Matthew, perhaps you can tell me a little bit about sorts of experience. One, I've always wanted to go to Japan, so I'm a good example. I've always wanted to go to Japan. I've never been there, so I go to Heathrow. I get on an aeroplane. What do I experience from then on until I actually arrive at the hotel?
So the average sort of flight time from the UK to Japan is about 11 hours on a direct flight. It could be a little bit longer, up to kind of about 14, 16 for a connecting flight. And then upon arrival in Japan, there's a number of different airports you can arrive into actually internationally. So the Osaka, for example, has an international airport which you can fly into. So does Fukuoka and Sapporo in the south and the north. But the main, obviously, airport that people tend to use, or city that people tend to fly into, is Tokyo, which has 2 airports. So it has Haneda Airport, which is a slightly smaller but increasingly international airport that's a little bit closer to central Tokyo. And there's also Narita Airport, which is the bigger airport, which has had historically more, which has just been around for longer. A little bit further out, but still easy to nip into Tokyo after you've landed. So from Narita, it's about an hour to get into Tokyo, something like that, on a kind of an express train. And from Haneda, it's about 20 minutes or so on a monorail that goes into central Tokyo. Both airports are very well connected. Obviously, lots of English language signage and all the amenities you could want on the other side when you arrive. And a number of hotels also offer shuttle services to and from the airport if you would like that too. So always good to check. Other options in terms of getting from the airport into town, there's a limousine bus service, which runs regular services, and it tends to be a little bit cheaper. Again, it stops off at a variety of different locations within Tokyo, as well as major hotels. So that's something to think about. And in addition to that, one other thing that you might want to think about is the Japan Rail Pass. So the Japan Rail Pass essentially gives you free access. You pay a set fee in advance for access to all of, about 95% of Japan's rail services, including things like bullet trains. And what you will need to do is get that validated, basically, when you get to Japan. So what you receive beforehand is kind of a voucher. And then once you arrive at the airport, you take it to the Japan Rail office and you show them your passport, and they'll validate that for you so that you can use it. So yeah, that's the general kind of gist of arriving in Japan.
Okay. Is it typical, or am I being slightly naive, but is it typical for people that do go and visit Japan to tour Japan, so to speak, as opposed to, say, staying in Tokyo for 7 or 10 days, that they would take a tour around Japan? And if so, how is that by coach? Is that by plane? Is that by train?
Absolutely, very much people would tour Japan. It varies often if you've been before or if it's your first time, but people tend to go for about a period of 2 weeks, I would say, minimum, because it is one of those kind of bucket list trips. So people want to see as much as they can while they're there. Generally speaking, people do use the Japan Rail Pass, so the the rail service, because it is so efficient and so widespread. So it's easy to navigate, lots of English language signage. It goes to all kind of corners. So it is also quite economical to use. So people do tend to use that to travel around Japan. But equally, there are internal, domestic flights, and there's a variety of deals for people who would like to use that more. So, for example, if you're flying to Okinawa, which is way down south, a tropical collection of islands south of Japan, but kind of included within Japan's archipelago, you would need to fly there. In that specific circumstance, there's a number of sort of cheap domestic reduced airfares that you can get as an international visitor in Japan. So something that's always worth checking with your operator or with the airline that you're working with.
Okay, so we've arrived in Japan. We're traveling on either a train or a limousine, and I'm now going to arrive in my hotel. And the hotel I have chosen to stay in is the Capital Hotel. And Sayako Ishikawa is going to tell me all about her hotel and what sort of experience. From the minute I get there, I'm expecting a totally culturally different experience. Is that correct?
Yes. Hi, I'm Sayako. Let me introduce my hotel first. The Capital Hotel Tokyo is a luxury hotel located in central Tokyo, in the Akasaka area, close to Prime Minister's offshore residence and the National Dai Building. And we are the flagship hotel within the Tokyo Hotel Group, who have almost 50 hotels in Japan. And our lobby and interior are designed by world-famous architect Kengo Kuma. And the Japanese architectural style and interior design create a perfect atmosphere for relaxation, whether traveling to Tokyo for business or leisure. And we are very proud as we were recently awarded as a 5-star hotel in Japan by Forbes Travel Guide. And we have total 251 guest rooms, including 14 suites. And that offers sophisticated Japanese modern spaces with Japanese traditional architectural style that feature shoji, the sliding paper doors, and husuma, Japanese sliding screen. And we have 3 restaurants, Japanese, Western, and Chinese. And we have 1 bar and 1 pastry boutique. And also we have beautiful art collection around the hotel, and which has recently been valued at over 200 million yen. And just next door to the hotel is the Hie Shrine. It's one of the Japan's most important Shinto sites with over 500 years of history. And it creates the calm atmosphere with its rich greenery and gives a perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of the city. And the Hie Shrine, you can experience the very exclusive Shinto ceremony as well. And the hotel is directly connected to the underground and has 4 lines of Tokyo Metro, providing a quick and easy access to major areas of Tokyo, such as Shibuya, Shinjuku, Roppongi, Ginza, Asakusa, and Tokyo stations. So you can easily enjoy sightseeing and shopping across the city.
Excellent, excellent. It sounds like, if we came there, I'm going to have a nice time. When you say you have Western, Japanese, and Chinese restaurants, and are all your staff multilingual? Or, I know when I've been to China, for example, I had to write things down and then get it translated. What's the language support? Obviously, you speak very good English.
Thank you. Most of our staff can speak both Japanese and English.
Right.
So everybody can enjoy.
Good. Well, it sounds fantastic. From a trade perspective, from a travel agent's perspective, do they deal direct with you, or do you deal just purely with tour operators?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I can help with that one. So both. Yeah, so you can either book direct as a consumer with the Capital Hotel Tokyo, or through the trade. There's either option.
All right, lovely, excellent. Well, it sounds an ideal time actually to start talking, because the hotel has put an awful lot of effort into art. Japan is known for its art. We have Adam on here who's going to tell us a little bit more about what we could experience. And there's been lots of programs here in the United Kingdom recently exposing some of the more famous Japanese artists. Adam, what would you recommend for someone who's just someone who's slightly naive about Japanese art, but is obviously very interested in it?
Yeah, sure. I think it's quite difficult to sort of narrow it down to one particular thing. So I just sort of chose one area that I'm going to talk about, and just a little bit about the art in that area, and it sort of gives you a bit of a cross section. And I'm going to talk about Kanazawa because it's also quite a big sort of tourist area. It's really easily accessible from Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, all the sort of major places that people go to. But I think, as with the rest of Japan, it has a really rich sort of craft tradition. So it's quite distinctive and local. So everything that you find when you go to a particular area in Japan is very local and quite distinctive. And I think one thing that Kanazawa does really well is blends that old with the new. So you see this the sort of the gate in behind me here. This is the Susu Mimon Gate, and it's right in front of Kanazawa Station. So as soon as you arrive there, you're greeted with this, this great modern piece of art, but just with that historical cultural side of things, and it's sort of become the symbol of the city, but sort of more on the crafts that you can sort of do in Kanazawa. And again, it's all about experiencing in Japan as well. So it's not just about looking how they do these things, it's also about taking part. So you can do silk dyeing, a technique sort of used on kimonos. And then Kanazawa also produces 99% of Japan's gold leaf. So obviously a craft that's been here for centuries. But as well as the sort of the old style of Japan, you've got that sort of modern side as well. So the 21st Century Museum of Contemporary Art in Kanazawa is really amazing, and it obviously has exhibitions rotating throughout the year. So obviously have a look at what's going to be there. But I suppose one of the most famous pieces there is the world-renowned Leandro Ehrlich swimming pool, which sort of looks like people are walking at the bottom of a swimming pool, and that's sort of in residence there. And as well, you just get this sense of just blending the old with the new, really, Graham, to be honest. And that's indicative of wherever you go in Japan.
Excellent. And just for clarity, the area you talk about, Karuizawa, Kanazawa, is that the sort of thing where you would go and stay there, or would you take a day trip if you were based in Tokyo?
It's a really good place to base yourself after being in Tokyo. Head up to Kanazawa, because once you're in Kanazawa, there's areas around there that are really, again, rich in culture and heritage, like Shirakawa-go, which have these amazing sort of houses that are sort of thatched roofed, and they're sort of quite well built and still in the same style as they were centuries ago, and it's all to withstand the snow. And again, you've got some really lovely traditional villages around there as well. So Kanazawa is a really good place to visit. You've got Noto Peninsula at the top as well, if you really want to go and get lost for some adventure and activity. Yeah, Kanazawa is a really good place to sort of base yourself and then go out from there.
And it's obvious that Japanese put a great deal of value on art. The very fact that Sayako was talking about how much her hotel had invested in art, but whenever you see anything, on documentaries or relations or even here in the UK museums, Japanese artists always seem to figure quite highly.
Yeah, I massively agree in everything. And I mean, it starts from the beginning. I know that they're not on this webinar, but ANA, for example, someone, an artist has specifically designed their business class suite. So it starts from as soon as you get on the plane to when you arrive. I think art is such a massive part of the culture, and whenever you go to Japan, guides and locals, they want to tell you about the amazing art that their city or village has, that's unique and very local to them.
Good. Well, one of the aspects that perhaps not as well known is nature. And we have Natalia, who's going to talk to us about what we might be able to experience nature-wise. We all pretty much live in a David Attenborough generation. Everybody's interested in wildlife these days, wherever you are around the world. So, Natalia, what's the sort of things that, I might even just see out of my hotel window and think, crikey, look at that. Perhaps you can tell me a bit more.
Yeah, so Karuizawa is a beautiful mountain resort town. It's situated in the southeastern part of Nagano Prefecture, and it is a haven for lovers of beautiful mountain views, serene nature, and really fascinating history that just seamlessly blends Western culture with Japanese culture. And thanks to its altitude of around 1,000 meters above sea level, in comparison to Tokyo, it has really mild and comfortable summers. It's located just an hour away from Tokyo Station by the bullet train and has a huge variety of seasonal activities, inspiring art galleries, museums, and local attractions, all surrounded by this bountiful nature that presents a different picture every season. So from your hotel view, from your hotel room, you'll be able to see this really beautiful, rich and luscious forest area. You'll see the mountains, and the air is really, really crisp. One of the things that Karuizawa is quite proud about, actually, is the really crisp mountain air. And as of this, people recommend walk around Karuizawa, cycle around Karuizawa. There's a lot of bicycle rental shops, specifically at Karuizawa Station. So the moment you exit off the bullet train at Karuizawa Station, you go outside, 300 yen for a bicycle per day, and just enjoy and just have a lovely time enjoying the clean air. And it's really quite different to when you're used to being around the city or even just suburban areas. It's so clean.
And is there any specific animals that we might spot that would be different and would make our eyes open wide?
Absolutely. So in the Hoshino area, there is a place called Pikio, and Pikio offers nature tours. It offers all these different nighttime views, and there you can experience bird watching. It's really popular for bird watching. You get all these different types of birds, and then also you can see the Asian black bear, and you can also see the flying squirrel.
Blimey, a flying squirrel. I'd like to see one of those, I must admit. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I've got lots of squirrels in my garden, but they only fly when I kick them. So the nature side of life sounds very, very interesting. The whole thing sounds fantastic, really. When you come back into the city or one of the big cities, there must be also another major culture shock with lots of different things going on. What sort of tours are offered, Matthew, in the bigger cities?
Yeah, so I think maybe if talking about the kind of areas that we've spoken about today, so you started in Tokyo at the capital, and then you went up about an hour by bullet train to Karuizawa, and then it's about another hour and a half to Kanazawa. The next kind of logical step would be to go round and down to Kyoto and Osaka. So they're the two other kind of major cities that people visit when they come to Japan for the first time anyway. And it takes about it's a 3-hour scenic train that is direct, that goes from Kanazawa down to either Osaka or Kyoto. But I think the main thing about Japanese cities is that each one has a very distinct flavor, very different to the next. So Tokyo is obviously a hugely international city, very big. There's lots to discover. You could spend, weeks there if you really wanted to, discovering every nook and cranny. But somewhere like Kyoto, for example, is associated with being kind of the cultural heart of Japan, the historical, traditional heart of Japan, was formerly the capital. So prides itself on the amount of temples it has, amounts of shrines it has, and a long history in things like, again, artisanal crafts, but kimono as well. And then somewhere like Osaka, which is just next door, so it's about half an hour, just above that from Kyoto by train, is known as the kitchen of Japan, because of its fantastic food offering. So I think Osaka does a lot very well, actually, when it comes to food, in that it's hugely metropolitan and cosmopolitan as a city. It has very glitzy, fancy side. So the hotel, the luxury offering has grown substantially in the past couple of years. So you can get really fine dining if you want to, and fantastic views over the city. But it's also known for having kind of being kind of the soul in some ways of Japan, kind of where Japanese people let their hair down a little bit, people are a little bit more open, less reserved as the kind of the stereotype is, and more chatty and friendly. And so there's a real association with kind of soul food. So, you know, things that are easy to pick up. In fact, a lot of the things that are becoming popular now in terms of Japanese food in the UK are very much kind of from the Osaka food scene as well. And there is one particular company called City Unscripted who offer tours with local guides or hosts, as they call them. So either native or expats who are living in those cities, and specifically Osaka, who will tailor your itinerary to whatever you want, and then will guide you around kind of as a local would. And I think that is particularly key for somewhere like Osaka as well, which has lots of kind of well-known areas for food. So the Dotonbori area, for example, Namba is also very good for food, but there are so many little nooks and crannies, markets, you know, just a little bit off the beaten track, that it's really worth visiting to have that really kind of authentic Japanese food experience.
Excellent. One final question from a UK perspective. What's the best way to buy a holiday? I mean, who are the tour operators that are in your top 5 tour ops that go into Japan?
Yeah, well, maybe we can get some feedback from the other people on this call as well. But for us, certainly, some of the big ones recently and who have been doing a lot in the Japan space of late are people like A&K, Cox and Kings, who've been reporting very sort of high demand as well for Japan, as well as Inside Japan Tours, who've been kind of a Japan specialist for quite a while, and have been seen very positive rebooking rates for trips throughout the whole of the kind of pandemic period. People like Into Japan as well, who do very kind of, again, specialized tours, Japan specialists.
Trail finders as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning. I do appreciate it. I don't know what time it is in Tokyo. No, Sayako, it's early evening, isn't it?
6
It's
p.m.
almost 6.
6 o'clock in the evening. Excellent. Well, we've just started our graft. You can now relax and go and have something to eat and a drink and just chill out. But everybody else on this call, I think, is got to start working now. So thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it. And sayonara.
Sayonara. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.